I want to say Iyam Hotep to all those who have tuned in. Ankh Uja Senevne. Anajrak Amen. Anuk Amen. Amen. Anajrak Mut. Anuk Mut. Mut. Anajrak Kunsu. Anuk Kunsu. Kunsu. Anajrak Asar. Anuk Asar. Asar. Anajrak Aset. Anuk Aset. Aset. Anajrak Haru. Anuk Haru. Haru. Haru represents higher consciousness. So that's where we go here in Mfundishi Speaks. The idea is that I want to talk about some topics and expand on it that normally we don't get on a regular YouTube or regular. I want to do just a little bit of teaching to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're all being challenged by this pandemic. We're all being challenged during this particular time as we move into the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius, spiritually, our ancestors laid out that this is an age of enlightenment. It's an age of knowledge. It's an age of information. And as you can see, our people, African people here, have created the internet. We created this monster here. And during this time, I guess since 2000 to now, in the last 20 years, people have learned more about, and specifically African people, their culture and their history than they did in 400 years prior to that. I'm gonna say that again. In the last 20 years, African people in general have learned more about themselves, their spirituality, and their true place in history than they did the 400 years that most African people have been here since 1600s. We were here before that, but when we were here before that, we were in our right minds. Okay, so we understood our connection to the earth. We understood those 5 elements that I talk about, domains that we have to be in touch with: the mineral domain, the plant domain, the animal domain, the spirit domain, the human domain. We were in tune with that before we came in contact on a large scale with our European, Euro-Asian counterparts. So the theme, again, I've used this topic once before, but this is just part 2. It is called Culture is Our Medicine, part 2, because I need to be extremely clear during these particular times when the powers who are moving out are trying to get a re-grip on the whole world. See, this goes beyond just America. This goes beyond just Europe. This goes beyond just Europe. We talk about 1% of the population controlling 90+% of the world. And they're doing this, they're using this pandemic as a stepping ground to prepare you for their total rulership of you. After this pandemic, you will see a change in the currency where they become almost a cashless society, or they'll create a new type of coin that only they are in control of, the 1%. They want to cut the world population more than half. Let me say that. When you want to cut the world population, war can't do that. War cannot kill enough people. Okay. The police can't kill enough people. And we're not killing enough of each other. So they need to speed this up. By 2030, African people will be a dominant people in America. By 2050, we'll be more than half the population of the planet. And so the 9% will dwindle back down to about 5%, which is going to make it extremely difficult for them to control the masses of the people. And so now we have to understand, how do we control the masses of people? So we understand the formula they've been using to control us. We have to take that formula, like the whole Willie Lynch type of thing, okay? Remember, during the enslavement of African people here, the most hideous crime that a European could do was to teach a Black person how to read and write. We understood, and Frederick Douglass makes it real clear, he understood that learning to read and write and to be analytical and be able to do research and study on your own was the most valuable tool a person could have. And that once that door is open, you could never be a slave again. You could never be a slave again. And people, the reason why we're a slave again is because we have lost that. Somehow somebody tricked us into getting your bachelor's degree, your master's degree, your PhD degree, that was a road to success. No, that just means that you were thoroughly indoctrinated and you went through a European rites of passage to become anti-yourself. I know you don't want to hear that. You've been told that that's the road to success. Black women in America are the most educated group in the whole American society. That's whites, blacks, gay, male. Black women got more degrees than anybody, and they're at the bottom of the economic ladder in America. And so how's that working out for you? It's not working out so great because it wasn't designed to. That was a smokescreen to have you running after something. Carter G. Woodson said in 1931 in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, that our most educated group, educated by our former enslavers, will be our new enslavers. And that when there was no back door, based upon our education, our very nature will demand one. And that's kind of what's happening now. We got all these millionaires, but they think just like white millionaires. White millionaires spend their money in their culture, a Eurasian culture. Asian millionaires spend their money in a Eurasian culture. African millionaires spend their money in a Eurasian culture. There's something wrong with that. Another former friend of mine who's an ancestor explained that we see each other through European eyes because we've been educated from them. We've been indoctrinated. I don't think you quite understand. Graduating from high school and college is an initiation into the Eurocentric worldview. And in some cases, you are no longer almost any good for us. In some cases, not all cases, some of us have debunked the programming. Some of us saw through the programming. But I'm going to say this, that's less than 5%. So if only 5% saw the program and decided to re-educate themselves, that's still 95% of us have bought this program, and this program is suicidal. This program runs on an automatic pilot once they got enough people running it. So that the Eurasians who are in control, who are doing you in, don't even have to be present anymore. You will perpetuate it on your own. Now you say, all right, Mfundishi, you're making a whole lot of noise here. Can you back up some of this? Let me just talk about, when I say your culture is your medicine, let me go back to a story. Even during the time of Tutankhamun, that's the third golden age in ancient Kemet, one of the neophytes, initiates, came to the high priest of Amun. And he said, I've been in the archives and I've been doing some studying. And the people of Sumer are our cousins, at least the ancient people were, that we both come from ancient Kush. But we've developed into this world power, colossal African nation. And our cousins almost no longer exist. Eurasians have come in and overrun that society, and our people are almost not there anymore. What happened? And the high priest of Amun looked him in the eye. He said, son, they lost their culture, they lost their language, they lost their story, and they died. Every place we were great at one time and no longer existence, it's the same story. We lost our language, we lost our history, we lost our culture, and we died. We got engulfed into somebody else's society and perpetuated that, and your culture died. So now, what are those ingredients? In my book, Spiritual Warriors Are Healers, this book here, hopefully most of y'all who are on here have this book. In my book, Spiritual Warriors Are History, I talk about a Pan-African worldview. And this is on chapter 8. Chapter 8 in my book, Somola Nane. And I say that you have to have at the center of your world needs to be African culture. Because remember, culture is your medicine. What does culture do? Culture is how you look at yourself, how you look at the world, and how you look at divinity, the creator of all of this. That's what culture defines first. It defines you, it defines yourself within the world, and it defines on how you look at divinity, the nature, the creator, God. How do you look at that entity? How do you relate to that? Your culture defines that. When somebody else gives you a religion that's outside of that, you're destined for destruction. I don't care how great you are. When you lose your language that expresses your relationship to nature, you are destined for destruction. And now, and then I can just go down the list of all of the things. So they co-opted your religion. That's well, actually, you had spirituality. They co-opted that, and you became ashamed of your relationship to nature. You became ashamed of your relationship to divinity. And then the highest form of divinity, your creator, was not in your image. When that happens, you are destined to die. So I know some of you still might be holding on to Christianity, still holding on to Judaism, still holding on to their image of the creator is not you. So you are destined for destruction. You are destined to be a second-class citizen, no matter where you are on the planet, even in your own homeland, Africa. Africa's major problem is that they don't see themselves as divine spiritual beings having a divine human experience. So you first have to look at yourself as divine, as a divine being. And you don't have a soul. You are a soul and you have a body. You have to really tap onto that. No child is born in sin. Every child is born divine. But now you have to teach them their divinity. You have to teach them their culture, which connects them to divinity, which connects them to nature, which connects them to their language and their story. I was a student of El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, and he used to tell us, he says, you have to unlearn the European history because it's his story. Now you have to learn our story. And then after you've done both of those, you will know the story. So you know his story, our story, now you know the story. You need to be well-versed. And one of Malcolm's favorite quotes used to be, history rewards all research. So I became a research historian, not just a regular historian, just regurgitates what the history books say. He just regurgitates what the institution says that was designed to enslave you. A research historian goes with a blank slate and says, okay, I'm going to unlearn all of the stuff they taught me and relearn it from my cultural perspective, my center. So I'm going to relearn all these things that they taught me. And that's our real story. See, for the future, real education will not be how many degrees you got, what school you went to. Real education was how well you unlearned all the things that they taught you and then relearned it from your center. That's education. Other than that, you are doomed. Other than that, you will be your own enslaver, and you will teach that to your children. See, somebody says, well, how come my name is jacked up? Well, your great-grandparents didn't know. They lost their culture. And then your parents didn't know. And now they taught you. And now you're teaching your kids. So if at some point you got to break the chain. At some point you have to break the cycle. The cycle is of enslavement. And so in order to empower yourself, in order to, see, we created this word sovereignty. That's a Kemetic concept word. One who is the captain of their ship, mentally, physically, and spiritually, that plots their destiny within the universe. And that destiny has to be in line with Ma'at. Truth, justice, righteous, harmonious, balance. You see, Ma'at has never been in anybody's program but ours. When the Europeans came, when the Asiatics came in, because they came in before the Europeans, when the Asiatics came in, they got rid of all the Necharu and they embraced Set. When the Europeans came in, they got rid of all the Necharu and they embraced Set. And what they loved about Satesh was Satesh rules through might and strength, not logic, not symptomatic thinking. He only rules through symbolic power based upon strength. So if you got a mighty army, then you can engulf anything that you want. You can take. What makes the American dollar still strong in the world? It's not based on anything. It's not based on any mineral wealth. It's based on the U.S. military, one of the most powerful militaries still in the world. So that's why the dollar is still strong. It still stands around the world. It's not based on any mineral. It's like an IOU. It's like a blank piece of paper. It's not worth nothing, but there's a military backing it. So we need to be clear about that. Dr. Leonard Jeffries makes it clear, if you want to control your society, you have control the politics, the governance, you have to control the economics, and you have to control the culture. There is no place in America right now, as I'm talking here in the 63rd century Kemetic spiritual time and the 21st century Western time, where Black people in America control that. We have some affluent Black people in communities, but the politics is an anti-African political system based upon capitalism. The economics feeds into capital. It's a capitalist economic system, and it's a Euro-Asian culture. And so therefore, even at your very best, you're going to be suicidal, a component that will help destroy your people, even when you receive the highest degree in this land. If you get the Nobel Peace Prize, that's the highest thing they can give you. So how's that working out for us? I think Obama got the latest Black man to get the Nobel Peace Prize. How has he helped us get out of the situation we're in? I think his presidency, his greatest thing that we can say during his presidency is that he was a champion of gay rights and same-sex marriages. That's probably the Hall of Fame of his presidency. He also helped link European presence militarily throughout Africa. And that wasn't for Africa's sake. It was for the United States economic venture. Desmond Tutu, I just saw a picture of him today. I think he's 90. got the first black person got the Nobel Peace Prize. He was a Catholic priest in apartheid South Africa. And there was no peace. How did he get a Nobel Peace Prize? It sounds like he led a lot of sheep into the wolf's den. And they rewarded him for that. Obama kept you docile and backwards. And he got rewarded for that. And every black man who received that award, that's their claim to fame. They kept the masses of the people ignorant and docile and engulfed in somebody else's culture. Which means that they stripped you. They were honored for stripping their people of the medicine they need to survive. And soon as Martin Luther King said, I might be leading my people into a burning building, he died. He was killed. As soon as he began to awaken, maybe we need another road. Bam, they took his life. Any president right now that stands up against the coronavirus, bam, they are killed or eliminated. They're not playing. We're the only one. This is a chess game, people. And right now, the elite have made a check move. They've put us in check. Now, the African proverb, there's a proverb says, by the time the players learn the game, the founders have dispersed. They got a new game. So when you're in check, first thing you got to do is get out of check or the game is over. Then you got to make an offensive move as opposed to staying on the run. And so Pan-Africanism, first of all, you got to survive. You got to survive this. Our healers and our medicine people have to rise to the occasion of surviving past this pandemic and past this COVID shot. Because our people have been tricked into taking it with no recourse. No matter if you die, sick, get ill, you don't have a recourse. Some of us are being fired from our jobs. Some of us are being co-opted into your livelihood. You can't go places because you refuse to be co-opted. And so you need another plan. And we have power in our numbers. We have power in togetherness. Only in unity we become strong. Individually, they pick us off one by one. So those of us who are culturally connected, this is the time we need to become together. We don't need to be arguing over no religion. That's a facade anyway. We need to be coming together. We all have to eat. We need to be coming together to feed ourselves. We all need to wear some clothes. If you live here in North America, it gets cold. We're getting ready to go into the winter. You need some clothes. We need to be in control of the clothes that we wear. And most important, we need to be educating ourselves. Now, our people, some of our esteemed leaders have been saying this for hundreds of years. And none of our elite, no, I won't say none, very few of our elite have taken that mantle and ran with it. We are promoting being enslaved by somebody else's educational system that's designed to keep us where we are. Education in the world is to maintain the status quo. The status quo is Euro-Asians on top, Black Africans on the bottom, and anybody of color on the bottom. All educational systems around the world is designed to do that right now. So you need a revolutionary approach towards education. So when I say culture is your medicine, that I outlined that in my book, Spiritual Warriors Are Healers, but I'm not the first one to do it. Amos Wilson, in one of his last book was Blueprint for Black Power. He outlined it. There's other people. Marcus Garvey came here to follow Booker T. Washington. He had a powerful program of self-sustaining. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We got to tweak it a little bit. That's all. We got to tweak it a little bit. It has to be around Pan-African ideology. We are one people, whether we're in Brazil, South America, whether we're in North America, whether we're on the African continent, whether we're in Eurasia, whether you're in Australia. We are all one people. We got to start thinking like that. Africa got to stop thinking like 54, 55 little individual countries. As long as they do that, that's divide and conquer. Instead of having one united president, we got 54, 55 presidents. That's chaotic right there. All right, that's a problem. Pan-Africanism. You got people in the African Union who are enemies of African people. So you can't even vote them out. You have the Chinese who built the union's headquarters, and so they're piped into all our meetings. And so they know what we're going to do before we know what we're going to do. So systemically, we got to change how we think. A friend of mine, Edward, really wrote a book called The Golden Apple, where he talks about symptomatic thinking. Symptomatic thinking, I can prove it. It's tangible. I know it. I'm part of it. It's not a belief system. It's a knowing system. And it's based upon facts. We have to go back there. Any contract you make should always be in your favor from an Pan-African perspective. How are you going to give somebody 90% of the oil on your land and you only get 10%? And then the 10% goes into the hand of few greedy leaders, politicians, and it doesn't get disseminated to the masses of the people who are part of the soil where you're getting it from. See, that's a European, that has to be taught to somebody. Nobody in their right mind would do something like that. That has to be taught you. And that's normal business on the African continent. We got to change the way we think. So I'm going back. I said culture is your medicine. So let's define this. Dr. Clark, I used to sit at his feet. Dr. Clark told us, he said, the Europeans laughed at our names and we changed it. They laughed at our religious practice, spiritual practice, and we changed it. They laughed at our clothes and we changed them. They laughed at the way we were interpreting the world through our educational system, and we changed it. It's time for us to not pay attention to all this laughing and to get serious and to go back and redo what was done to us, undo what was done to us. So I'm proposed, like everybody knows here that I'm a component that I really push the Madu nature. And the reason why I push the Madu nature is our classical language. Our classical language means the best that your culture has to offer. It is the only ancient language that has literature, history, science, spirituality, philosophy, anatomy, mathematics, everything, art, all entrenched in it. And we have more of that than all the rest of the cultures put together and then multiplied by 10. We still got more records. Do you realize that almost every major museum in the world got a wing for ancient Egypt? So you're probably wondering, is there anything left still in ancient Egypt? And they're still finding stuff every day. We were the most prolific writers. We were the most prolific organizers. We're the most prolific artists. We're the most prolific thinkers and contemplators of the universe ever on this planet. We have to utilize that. I love really talking about the first and second golden age because we were writing that before we were even influenced by anybody else in the world. We were only around Black people and our relationship to nature. From the third and fourth golden age and on, now some of our ideas were still us, but some of our ideas got influenced by foreign thought and some foreign ideologies. We start accepting foreign women. We start doing that. Then we start creating a new group of people. And the new group of people had allegiance to the mixed group that they came from, not the base people that they were part of. And that's still a problem we kind of have today. It has never stopped. And so we have to fortify ourselves. Once we know what was done, now we know how to undo it. See, when you don't know what was done and you messed up, now that's a problem. But you know the whole Willie Lynch syndrome. You know what was done to us here in America. You know what was done to us in the Caribbean. You know what was done to us in South America. You know what was done to us in Europe and Asia. You know, what the first dynasties in China were all African. What happened to them? They lost their language, they lost their culture, they lost their history, and they died. So now they're just some remote little villages in remote areas in China. Okay, so the Madhu Netra connects you back to your image of divinity. It connects you back to your personal self-esteem. In the Madhu Netra, they always depict themselves in a state of greatness. I don't care if they were plowing the field. They plow in the field in a white outfit with pleats in it and don't have a speck of dirt on them. The wife is out there planting seeds in her beautiful outfit, don't have a speck. They always present themselves in excellence. So as young people look upon the elders in the work in the expert class, they see excellence. You have to be in control of the images of your culture. We have lost control of the images. And then they'll get some clowns like Tyler Perry and them and make them kings of our imagery. And they're like anti-Black men. So that just feeds into the Black Lives Matter. That blends in to the European persona. And so we make, because they've been programmed and made successful by our enemy, many times what appears to be for us is more for them than it is for us. We perpetuate soul food. We know that soul food is slave food. Soul food will give you high blood pressure, diabetes, and a heart attack. And will cut at least probably 25 years off your life. But we made it popular. Oh, I got soul food restaurant. We have to, once you know what was done, now you know how to undo it. But you have to acknowledge that there's a problem. If you're sick and don't realize this, most of our people with their PhDs and master's degree don't think that they're sick. They don't think that they've been indoctrinated into the European way of life. When I'm looking on the internet and I see especially Black women talk about all the places they visited, almost none of them have visited Africa. They talk about their trip to Paris. They talk about their trip to London. They talk about all the Caribbean islands they've been to. Right? But they ain't go home. They ain't go back to Africa because, they don't want to go there. That's not part of the European success paradigm. Oh, I spent my vacation in the Congo going through one of the last rainforests. No, that's not nobody's scenario. It needs to be. I'm learning herbology in the Congo, or I went to the Amazon so I can see what the world used to look like. Nobody's doing that. That's not a push program. That's because we're not writing the curriculum. So I'm hoping culture is our medicine. If you lose your story, you lose your history, you lose your language, you die. You become the walking dead. And that's almost what's happening here in America. The most creative people, the most dynamic people are like the walking dead. James Small, and in our movie Happy Films that Brother Taki put out, James Small makes an analysis. He said we would be the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. That's the money that goes through Africans in America's hands. And we've used none of that money to control our communities. We've used none of that money to build our own. I'm not talking about the HBSU. I graduated from an HBS school. Those are just white schools in blackface. The thing I encouraged, like my daughter went to one, what I encouraged was that at least you can get some black love there. And you can't get no black love at Rutgers University, Harvard, Yale, Cornell. You're not going to get any black love. So at least in those schools, you get some nurturing. But you're being programmed the same way you are at Temple, at Princeton, at Yale, at Cornell, at Harvard. You're still getting the same programming. We got to change that paradigm, people. You got to get rid of these religions. I know I'm really stepping on toes here. People, your great-grandparents had it. Your grandparents had it. Your parents had it. Now you got it. You love the church. You love to sing. You love it. People, do you want to survive in the 21st century? Do you want to be here when the 22nd century comes around? You're an expendable commodity. Almost all of Africa from the central up is Islamic, from all down is Christian. How's that helping us? What Jomo Kenyatta said when the European missionaries came, we had the land and they had the Bible. They taught us how to pray. We closed our eyes and prayed. When we opened our eyes, we had the Bible and they had the land. 1884, 1885, they divided all of Africa up and it's still divided. So that's not just the past, that's still now. And we're proud of their division of controlling us. I know y'all don't want to hear this, but it's just my job. My job is not a popularity contest. My job as a research historian, as an Africologist, as a Kemetic spiritual healer, is to try to give you your medicine back so that you can heal yourself. Okay, so we got to begin to do that. We got to embrace African spirituality in all of its forms. African spirituality. That's how we look at the creator, how we look at the divinity within ourselves, and how we look at the universe, how we look at the land. Are we in partnership with nature as opposed to at war with nature? Eurasian culture is at war with nature. Nature is supposed to be our allies. We're supposed to be one with nature. So we got to change all of those things that the Western world has taught us, and we got to move back and become one with it. We got to change the way we eat. First of all, we eat too much. That's number one. And then we eat too much of the wrong foods. That's number two. We got to go back to a plant-based diet. We got to go back to eating the way close to possible as the way our African ancestors did when they were at their height. We used to be the most long-lived of people. And now, for example, Black men in America got the shortest lifespan almost on the planet. So how do you live in the richest country in the world where everything is available to you and you got the shortest lifespan? Y'all don't see something wrong with that? And those people are good Muslims and good Christians. There's something wrong there. Turn the light on so you can see. Change your diet, people. Consume less sugar. Eat less food. 3 meals a day is suicidal. Okay, change the way you think. In Spiritual Warriors Are Healers, I have an alternative in one of the chapters on, I believe, chapter 10. I talk about how you begin to take from the slave food and move towards holistic food. Because sometimes we have to go in stages. You need to fast periodically, at least every quarter. Some people try to do it every month. Your body needs to rest and need time to heal, where you just drink water to cleanse it. So you need periodic fasting. You notice doctors don't push anything like that. I don't care what's wrong with you. Doctors don't tell you to change your diet. They try to give you some drugs. And pharmaceutical drugs is the third leading cause of death in America. Your doctors are killing you with a prescription, and you happy and you paying for it. Because you've been taught like a dog goes to fetch a bone. You've been taught. Go, Rover. Bring it here, Rover. Turn over, Roller. Give me your paw, Rover. That's what your doctors are telling you, and you're being obedient just like Rover. And those who are not even being obedient to that still are following the European culture, so you're poisoning yourself. Either way, you can't win. You got to go back to nature. You got to go back to being a holistic healer. You got to go back to the plant base. You got to understand herbs and herbology. You got to understand crystals. You got to understand the minerals. You got to understand the universe, the nature, at least the earth. I got people come to my table, and the first question they ask me, do I have motivite or tiki? Why you want a stone from another planet? Because Europeans told you it was good. So you don't want a stone that's going to help you synchronize yourself within the earth. You want an out of mind, out of body experience, because this one ain't working for you. So you just get some motivate and start and take a trip. Okay. Simple things like they've co-opted our music. I know somebody tried to debate me last time about, oh, they ain't co-op out. We're in control of our music. No, we're not. We're not in control of our music anymore. The major music industry is controlled by our former enslaver. And it's linked to the prison system. So our music in general is either leading us gospel to the plantation, to master plantation, to be a slave, or it's leading us to jail. We got music, real music, classical music has no age to it. When you hear some of the African drum beats and you hear the flute, and it doesn't have a time period. It's always good every time you listen to it. That's why when we had the music of the 60s and 70s, people still listen to that today because it's timeless. The OJ, smiling faces tell lies. Come on, that's some real stuff. That's some real stuff. I mean, come on. I mean, we got music that tells you that's my girl. I wish it would rain because your mind is messed up. I mean, we had songs that really speak to your heart. Okay, all right. So we got to go back and take our music, make our music timeless. When I was coming up, everybody was a musician. I remember I wanted to play the guitar. I played the guitar, the drums. Now, everybody's... You don't even have an instrument. You got a sound machine in the back that's making music, and you just sampling everybody else's stuff. We got to turn this around, people. Take control of your music. Take control of your food. Go back to nature. Take control of your food. Take control of your clothes. You will never see Mfundishi in some Wazungu clothes walking downtown or any place, or any speaking engagements or anywhere. I only wear African clothes in public. Actually, I only wear African clothes, period. I used to say, I remember Dr. Clark said, at least we can make our own underwear, our own socks. So I even commissioned one of our priestess to make me a dozen black African underwear. So, so I can be from head to toe. I can say, I got an African persona here. I'm not faking the funk. I know somebody gonna come by. Infelice, let me see your underwear. I'm checking on you. Okay. All right. So people, you gotta also practice what you preach. Don't just have a nice African outfit that you wear for the International African Art Festival. So you pull it out of the closet, for special occasions. Oh, it's Marcus Garvey Day. So you put on your red, black, and green that day. And then 365 cents, you look like Elvis Presley or somebody else. Okay, no. You got to start wearing your culture. You got to wear it. You got to eat it. You got to think it. Our music has to amplify it. We have to be in control of our images. We're always protesting how somebody else is depicting us because we're not depicting our own image. Ancient Kemet took control of their imagery. If you look at the background here, you'll see some pictures here. We took control of how we looked every step of the place. Everywhere. Look at this woman's outfit. Look at how Uru was depicted. We were always in control of how we looked. Look at here. Look at Chahaka moving here in the fourth golden age. Look how our ancient Cushite brothers were coming to Kemet. Look how we paraded up and down the street. We had our clothes on that we manufactured. Look how we dressed ourselves. We always looked at ourselves in glory. I mean, even when we had a funeral, we went to the funeral hooked up and clothes. We even, the facade of the karass, the casket, was always even done in a cultural motif. Our warriors wore African clothes as they dressed up. We personified ourselves. Everything we did was in a positive imagery. We were in control of what we looked like. We were in control of our own image. So we didn't have to complain to nobody. We were in control of the imagery. And one of the first things the Europeans did was try to deface the statues. They tried to change the way you look. They tried to change the imagery that we had. And then they imitated it. We got to go back and get in control, people. Our buildings, our architecture, our engineer showed our relationship to nature. Now, we got great architects, but unfortunately, we've been programmed by Europe. We started the art. We created architecture. We created Masonic building, taught it to somebody else. They used their culture to re-educate us in our own art. And this has been a scenario that they've used. We created science. We taught them science. Then they created science to destroy nature and then taught us how to do that. And so now our scientists is not imitating the original scientists. They're imitating the imitative sciences who have the wrong. You notice that their science is anti-nature. It's as opposed to being aiding nature. So we got to relook on how we look at the world, people. This becomes extremely important. How we look at the world becomes. Ma'at is right there in the center. We got to have Ma'at in the center of our world. And we got to control all our images. Are our images projecting Ma'at? That's what you need to ask yourself. When you look at your art, is your art projecting Ma'at? Now, you could be creative in your expression, but is Ma'at a theme there? Is this going to create harmonious balance, reciprocity? Is this going to help us in some kind of way uplift ourselves? If you're a songwriter, is your song going to somehow help build our self-esteem, show our connection to nature, show how powerful we are, show how beautiful we are, show how loving we are? Is your song going to do anything like that? Is your music going to imitate nature in some form so that we can identify with it and it help put our brain waves in an alpha state or in a meditative state? You got to be thinking, Ma'at has to be in the center. You're a chef. Is your food going to enhance the human body? Or is it just going to taste good with a whole bunch of sugar and other stuff in it that breaks the body down? Do you have the right herbs and the right combination that's going to enrich the immune system? You got the right herbs and stuff in it that's going to help the stomach culture? That's what the chef should be thinking about. Okay. I go back to language again. I know we speak all the languages around the planet. All I'm saying is that continue to do that, but learn the Medu Necha. When I was teaching Ashanti Tree in Medu Necha in Ghana, I found out that the common Ghanaian didn't know the meaning of the words in his own language. I gave an example. There's a word called abroni. When you ask the Ghanaian, what does abroni mean in the Ashanti Tree? Oh, it means foreigner or white man. So sometimes black people, they call us abroni too, because we foreigners. No, the original word their ancestors meant that it meant destroyer. But now the young people don't know that. Oh, that just means white man. No, it means a destroyer, somebody who comes to destroy your culture, your way of life, your livelihood, your family. But because you lost your culture, you still know your language, but you learn your language from a perspective that's no longer the way symptomatically, the way our ancestors created the language. The Madu nature puts you back in touch. I would show a snake and I say, okay, this is a cobra snake. This is a so-and-so. Oh, we just got a word for snake. We don't got all these different types of snakes. What do you mean you don't have, these snakes exist? You got to have a name for it. Y'all don't remember it no more because it hasn't been relevant in your European educational system. Your connection to nature has been severed. And if you begin, anybody who speaks other languages, you'll begin to understand what I'm saying is probably true in your language. Spanish, Italian, English, all of them are anti-nature. And your adjectives, look at the word black, look at all the negative connotations in the English language. Everything that's black or anything like that is bad. Devil food cake is chocolate. Angel food cake is white. Everything about the Black Friday, everything that's negative, it's in the language itself is racist. And so you're anti yourself just by speaking the language. So I understand we have to communicate in a culture. So you have to learn Portuguese, you have to learn Spanish, you have to learn English, but learn your language also. And I don't care which one, whether it's Swahili, whether it's Ga, whether it's Tree, learn your African language, as well as learning the Madu nature. That's our classical language. That will help you understand your language even better. So I'm going to say this again. The Madu nature will help you understand your language, no matter what it is, better from a Ma'atian, holistic, spiritual perspective, so that you begin to understand your own language symptomatically as opposed to just symbolically. That's like, for example, in Madu nature, if I say, all right, this is a picture of a bird, and this is how you draw it, that's symbolically. Now I tell you, okay, go find a picture of that bird in nature, or go find that bird, what it looks like for real. Then tell me, what does that bird do? What's that bird eating habits? What is this fighting habits? Is this a predator or is it a prey? What is that bird's mating habits? Where does that bird live? So you look up all of this. So now symptomatically, I know what this bird is all about. Now I even know why the ancestors chose this bird to represent this sound or to represent this word. That's symptomatic thinking. So I can take a symbolic symbol and translate it symptomatically. You have been taught to just learn it symbolically. Just memorize it. That's an A. You don't need to know why it's an A. It's an A because I said so. No, that's symbolic thought. And that's how the educational system is being taught all around the world. That's how religion is being taught all around the world. I like to say it. Nobody in the Quran read the Quran. Nobody in the Bible read the Bible. So how are you going to hell if you don't read it? And why would somebody tell you that's the only book that you need? That's suicidal right there. Knowledge is king and queen. Knowledge is what's happening. You need to be able to read as many things as you can so that you have a worldly approach. I talked about we have to begin again to explore how we even look at our ancestors has to be reevaluated. How we look at our ancestors have to be reevaluated. We have some people on the hero shiro list who shouldn't be there. Sometimes somebody else has defined who your heroes and shiros are. So you need to ask your question. Culturally, was this person a champion of African culture? Did this person do something to help African people have a greater life, understanding who they are in the belly of the beast? Okay. Madam C.J. Walker, who invented the straightening comb, one of the first women millionaires. She is not a shiro to me. She was teaching you how not to look like in your culture so that you could be accepted in the white culture. Now, yes, she made an economic empire, But you see, if you put economics ahead of your culture, you're doomed. We have to redefine who is a hero and a shero for African people. If you were a clown your whole life, you ain't no hero to African people. You have to ask a series of questions. Was this person culturally significant in changing the way African people think to make them better? Not just to survive, but make them better as an African purpose and to help them for African liberation, to help us to become independent. Now that's a person who's a hero or shero. So we have to redefine. See, somebody else has defined what is a hero for us. I'm going back. Dr. Jeffries constantly talks about governance, economics, and culture. That's the pyramid. Your governance, people, have to be based upon ma'at, not mob rule. I know this is going to shake up a lot of y'all again. You've been taught how great democracy is. Democracy is mob rule. If you got a bunch of ignorant people and they all said, let's do that, that don't make it right. Mobs hung Black people. Mobs burnt down cities. Mobs destroyed whole Black communities. Mobs perpetuated slavery. Bob said slavery was the law. Do y'all remember? Slavery was the law. Mobs voted that in. Because the mob say so don't make it right. Is it based upon ma'at? Ma'at is the law. Is it truth, justice, harmonious balance? Does it lead towards reciprocity? Is it going to enlighten us? Is it going to keep us in balance? That's your governance. The Nasut Bitti's job, the king's job, was to maintain ma'at in the society. Okay, that's the governance. Number two, the culture is how you are related, how you not only survive, but how do you flourish based upon your relationship with nature. And so the economics perpetuates that. So guess what? If I'm in my culture right mind, then my medicine is going to be herbs and natural. And so I'm making money by healing people, by being an ally with nature. I'm a herbalist. I'm going back to plant. I'm a farmer. I'm have a relationship with nature. So economically, I make money by circulating the culture. I'm an artist. I'm creating art that inspires people, that's tapping me back into my culture. I'm an entertainer. I'm enlightening people. I'm showing comedy maybe out of the tragedy of our life so that we can make a correction. That's some of the most beautiful comedy. I remember George Garland, the European comedian. He was a genius. He would show you the real truth and show you how stupid it is. And it was so stupid, it was funny. Show you your level of insanity. Richard Pryor was a genius at this. He would show you your stupidity, and it was so bad, it became funny. Because you said, how can somebody really, really do this? And so your art is personifying the nature that you're in so that you can change towards being something better. You got to look at every facet. I used to say this, do an inventory of everything that you think you need. And now begin to develop it and control it. That's how you control the economics. So that's what I did in the organization Jehuti Haru Nepu. Okay, we're teaching Medu Necha. First of all, we need our own book. So to take the class, you need our book. You need Spiritual Warriors and Healers. We produce that. Then I say, okay, we need our own flashcards so that people can learn the alphabet, the biletters, the trilet. We produce that. We got our own flashcards. Then I say, okay, we need our own network. We don't need to put it on somebody else's, so we got our own website. We produce it. You come on our website to take our class. You don't go on YouTube. You go on our website to produce, to take our classes. We control that. You got to be everything that you think you need. We're developing our own maps. We're developing our own little dictionaries and things of that nature on how to define things. You got to be in control. That's economics, because the economics is feeding the culture. You got this economic idea that's anti your culture. Oh, I'm going to sell sugar sandwiches. Everybody love that. They're going to have diabetes and be dead by the time they're 60, but I'm going to make a lot of money. No. See, that's capitalism. You don't want to be a black capitalist, then you become part of the problem. I know I'm stepping on a lot of toes. Some of y'all just got businesses just to make money. But see, then you're no better than the people who are enslaving you, because you've been programmed by them. You got masters in it. You got PhDs in it. You got your BA, BS in it. You got your high school diploma in it. All of that is an initiation into the European way of thinking to destroy yourself. So you got to undo what was done to you. Your culture is your medicine, and it's the culture at the center. It's the culture at the center of that. So if I go back to that picture again, on that page, you'll look here, and culture is at your center. Everything revolves around that. So if I just read the list from in my book, your defense system, to develop something and not to be able to protect it is like not having it all. Your enemy will just take it. And they've proven that. That's not an Mfundishi theory. Just look around the world. When the British Empire used to say the sun never sets on the British Empire, what do you think they meant? They meant they had their foot up everybody's butt on the planet. It wasn't helping nobody. They were raping, pilgriming, and reaping the soil, reaping the benefits from all these cultures and giving them nothing in return. And then got mad when they tried to immigrate to their country. Your educational system, you have to develop. And so we're building school in Ghana with a Pan-African educational system. You should be teaching your children how to create their own employment, not to get a job. You should be teaching your children what is their mission in life, what is their expertise, so that they can employ themselves. I hope you understood that. That's what you should be teaching your children. You find out what is their gifts, and then you teach them how to master that. And hopefully their gifts and their mastery is governed by ma'at. Because I know what you're saying. You say, oh, well, Mfundishi, if it's something I just like to do and I'm an expert at it, I'm good at it. Okay, I like smoking weed. Okay, and weed is good. And I'm making a lot of money spelling weed. Now I got to look, is weed helping your people? Are you putting it in a form that's healthy? Or are you putting it in a form that puts them in la-la land and they don't know what's happening? And when they wake up from la-la land, it's worse than it was before they went to la-la land. So is what you're making money in, is it in ma'at? Ma'at is the standard. So that's education, that's defense. You got a defense. I teach Kupagani Ngumi, an African martial arts system based upon our culture. So the language in there is Madu Necha and Kiswahili. So you're learning your culture, your language. You're learning how to defend yourself, and you're learning how to be holistic. You're learning how to be a healer, first by healing yourself. Then you're learning how to defend yourself and your family. And it's based upon ma'at. Then we go to the Unjama economy. I try to teach cooperative economics. For example, I taught my daughter, she became a priestess in the a Christologist. She has a master's degree from the European education in anthropology, cultural anthropology, but she became a Christologist. And now she can make six figures from home, doing what she loves to do. And is it based upon ma'at? Yes. And so her economics is based upon ma'at, and it's based upon helping her people and helping herself. My son is a master chef. Again, He's one of his claims to fame is that he can almost take anything that you could eat that's bad for you and do it so that it's good for you. Make you eat some dishes that's totally vegetarian, and you think it's a meat dish. The idea is holistically, how do we take our expertise and use it in my art? I go back, our science and technology. Science and technology has to be an ally with nature and to how to work with nature to make things easier for you. And so even on the African continent, we have some electrical cars. The best electrical cars in the world are being developed on the African continent by Africans. Are we embracing that? No. We want a Japanese car. We want a Chinese car. We want an Asian car because they're fuel efficient. No, you need to be getting away from fuel cars. That's a poor way of using fuel. It's a poor way of running something. You don't want to use fossil fuel as that means you're destroying nature in order to move your technology. The way astronauts are moving out of space is clumsy, backwards, and chaotic. You notice you've never seen an alien ship come here using some type of fossil fuel or something. There's always some technology where it's blended into nature. It's taking air and turning it into pure fuel, okay? Your scientists have to be thinking there. How do we become an ally with nature? But you got to be thinking that to start with. I mentioned your art and your music and your entertainment. Your shows, your TV shows should be how Africans should be acting in the real world. Not that stuff I see coming out of Nigeria. I forgot even the name of that, the movies they got there. There's just silly slapstick stuff. It's not putting Africans in their true light. It's not realistic. It's not holistic. And it definitely is not my art. But they're making money. See, your economics has to be about building your culture, perpetuating your culture, not defaming it. Your economic system, Unjama economy, we need to profit together from, like in Kwanzaa, cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops in our own communities, and to profit together from them. That's what we got to be thinking. You notice everybody comes to the Black community and set up shop because they know we spend money with anybody. We are undiscriminated. We don't have no loyalty. Anybody who got something, we buying it. No, you need to be a little bit more discriminatory. First of all, you need to buy stuff with Black people to help perpetuate your people. Second, you need stuff that's going to be good for you and good for your family and good for your culture, good for your people. You got to start changing the way you think. Symptomatic thought. Is it good for African people? If I got Louis Vuitton across my chest, did that help African people? If I got a pair of Jordans on, did that help African people? You're going to need to ask yourself these questions. We got to go back and taking care of our medicine. I noticed the last 20 years, we have a lot more naturopath holistic healers. But this pandemic is trying to put an end to that. We want you to just take the shot, go and be tapped into European medicine. Why would you trust them? Do they have a good record of helping the Black community? I mean, it's so ridiculous, it's funny. You trust the very people who got the worst record on the planet of helping you. And then the same people who want to cut the world population in half is dispensing it. That seemed like a conflict of interest to me. I don't need to be a genius to say, okay, there's something wrong with this scenario here. And you're going to pay me to take the shot? Okay, let's move on. So your governance has to be a ma'at, your educational system, your defense system, your African spirituality. I know religion is a very touchy subject, but that's enslaving us. At some point, you got to give back to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And I don't care if African people started. If it's backwards, get rid of it. Anything that's not ma'at, you get rid of it. I don't care who discovered it, who started it. You have to be symptomatic, and you got to be You also use some logic here. You got to use, is this good for us? I don't care who discovered it. Is it good for us? Is it good for our people? Is it good for my family? If the answer is no on any one of those, you reject it. All right, I talked about clothes. You got to put your clothes back on. I don't want to go into any great detail. I showed you the pictures of our African ancestors. They didn't put on any European clothes. They weren't rocking some Greek outfits and ancient Kemet. Okay, the ancient Kemet were not trying to look like the Romans. Okay, all right. They were trying to look like us, and we've reversed all of that. Go back, get the book Willie Lynch. Look at everything that they've done symptomatically to us, and symptomatically reverse it. No dark versus light. No tall versus short, no male versus female, no old versus young. We got to embrace each other. I tell people the difference between Trinidad, Jamaica, the Caribbeans, any place in the Caribbean, America, South America, Europe. The only difference between those African people was a boat stop. We're all still African people. And you almost got an advantage. You got to look at the situation and you got to obsess it. You got to do it. You got to do an analytical thinking. You got to say, how can we take our situation and put it to our advantage? Now, when you're using operational unity, when it comes for African unity, sometimes Africans on the continent have a disadvantage. They've been programmed to just have pride in their particular little ethnic group. So they're anti all the rest of the Africans. They don't belong to their ethnic group. You can't marry them. They're not Ashanti. You can't marry them. Or they're that guy. Don't even talk to them. But see, Africans from the diaspora, some of us don't have that type of stigma. We're embracing all of African people. And that's the way I got to look at it. I love you because you love yourself as an African. I'm going to say that again. I love you because you love yourself as an African. I don't love you because you're a Nigerian or you from Trinidad or you from Tanzania or you from Ghana. I love you because you love yourself as an African. You respect yourself as an African. You embrace your African culture. Now, it doesn't mean I'm anti-white now. Some of my friends have friends who have white friends, and I don't have a problem with them. I know some of y'all will get that in the morning, okay? But you got to have love in your heart. You give love to those who deserve your love. That's my art. I respect the lion, but I don't go out there loving on some lions in the wilderness, out in the forest. I realize that I could be his dinner. So I respect him. I love him for his nature, but I'm not running out there trying to hug him. I like crocodiles, but I'm not trying to ride one. You put everything in its proper spatial perspective. You love those that have your best interests at heart, even though you can love unconditionally, but I have to love with the understanding, symptomatic love. That's the first time I've ever used those two together. Symptomatic love is what you need. Okay, so yes, I love indiscriminately, but symptomatically. I'm not trying to hug up on something that's trying to eat me. I'm not trying to go to bed with something that wants to sting me. So you got to use some symptomatic logic here. So symptomatic love. I love those, and I love that which is operating in my art and that loves itself and that is not detrimental to my existence. Anytime you just love your enemy indiscriminately, that's a suicide note. Transportation, people. I know we didn't want to mention that, but if you're in Ghana, you should be trying to get a Katanka, a Ghanaian-based car. Even in Nigeria, they got some cars that they're making. You should be embracing your car. I saw a lecture, it was in Ghana, and the president of France came. The president of France came, first of all, he flew Air France. He stayed at a French hotel. And when he delivered his message to the people of Ghana, he did it in French, and you had to translate it. He drove to the meeting in a Peugeot, a French car. The Ghanaian president spoke English, stayed in the Chinese hotel, and came in a Mercedes-Benz, a German car. He didn't understand the power behind his supporting his own. So he should have did his lecture in an African language and had it translated to English and other languages. He should have only stayed in an African-based hotel. He should have drove in an African car made in Ghana by Ghanaians who have a manufacturing company. You see, we got to start thinking like that. We got to change the way we think. I go to a UN meeting and 95% of all African nations got a suit and tie on. What happened to the cultural attire from your country? The Arabs are in their cultural attire. The Europeans are in their cultural attire, and you're in their cultural attire. You're trying to look like an Arab or a European. People, I know you're saying, oh, Mfundishi, oh, come on, you picnicking now. No, all these little things are important. Are you embracing your culture at every level? If I go to a formal, when you go to a formal, that means you're presenting your cultural best. So you don't go to a formal in a penguin outfit if you're an African. Y'all know a penguin outfit, this the tuxedo. Looking like a penguin, okay? As opposed to looking like an African royalty, an African king, looking like one of these images I just showed you. You should be looking like that. And when you do that, you'll be the talk of the party. I went with my children's mother to a dinner party once. It was all upscale African people. Everybody there was upper middle class, upper class. They came in penguin outfits. I had my cultural hat on. I had to put on a little como bun and everything, but it was in kente and all of that. And you know, all the Negroes wanted to talk about was my outfit the whole night, my crown, the kente, where it come from, the culture. Everybody's fascinated by our stuff, even Negroes who are trying to be like the Wazungu. And the Wazungu are really fascinated by our stuff. When I'm on 125th Street, half the Europeans stop just to look at me as opposed to my merchandise. They want to know, okay, this is one of them Negroes that got away. Where you from? You can't be from here. That's the first thing they ask me. Where you from? They figure you got to be an escape black folks, an escaped black man from some other country that found yourself in New York. They can't imagine that you raised here in America looking like that. They can't imagine that you went to their educational institutions and you selling the stuff you selling. People, wake up. Wake up. I think Spike Lee did a movie like that. Okay. Wake up. We are an African people, no matter where we are on the planet. You have to embrace African culture or you're doomed. And at every level, you have to embrace African culture. If I just look, one of my first major books, Kupagani and Gumi, The Root Symbols of Ancient Kemet. This was done going back to the 80s, 70s and 80s. Then I did Spiritual Warriors Like Healers. It's all about, it's like an encyclopedia, a dictionary, a how-to, a go-to, a Bible of African culture and how we can tap into our nature. My last two books, Menchu Hotep and the Spirit of the Magi. I take you through an initiation. See, you've already been through initiation. Like I said, if you graduated from high school, if you went to college, if you got any of their degrees, you've been initiated into white suicide. I know you don't want to hear that. Oh man, I paid a lot of money for that, for my PhD. Yeah, that's okay. You got power higher and deeper in their bullshit. That's all you did. And now you are been stamped approved by your enemy to continue to mess our minds up. Now, like I say, that's just 5%. 5% of us took their programming and then we reprogrammed ourselves. But 95% didn't. 95% is pushing their program in blackface. Then I come up with Shimsu Haru, Minshu Hotep and Spiritual War. This book deals with, after he even united the country, how do you change the minds of your people? How do you go to the next level? How do you become a scientist, a spiritual scientist? How do you take what you've learned and make it useful to the masses of people? And so, people, I'm going to open up some question and answer period. I just want to say, when you tapped into your culture, if you look at our story, if I blow up this picture here, this is Darius, one of the first great Persian kings. He is a black man. His ancestors also come from Canaan. His ancestors come from, who was the founder of Canaan? Memrod. Who is Memrod? The son of Cush. There's a book by Drusilla Houston called The Wonderful Ethiopians. You need to read that. It tells you about all of these early Asiatic nations came from Africa. But what happened? They lost their culture, they lost their language, and they died. Why Africans so crazy in America? We lost our language, we lost our culture, and we're the walking dead. Embrace your culture. That's your medicine, people. In every line, whether it's science and medicine, whether it's education, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's architecture. I don't care whether you're a teacher, you're teaching from an African-centered perspective. Is it glorifying African people? Are you controlling the images? Are you deifying our ancestors? You notice I said there's 4 ways to deify our ancestors. First, speak their language in their cultural vernacular, the way they spoke their language, their name. So if his name was Tut Ankh Amen, don't call him King Tut. If his name is Ursa Ma'at Ra Satepin Ra Mariana Aman, don't call him Ramses II. Call him by his name. Number 3, glorify their great works and let people know African people did this. And number 4, you perpetuate their great works, and then you leave images of them behind so that our children will be inspired by it. That's why you have these images on my background here, because they were inspiring. Look at the way, look, Asar a lot of times was looked at as like black God. Look at Asar. Is it obvious that Asar right there in the center is a black man? It's obvious. So our personification of the highest deity at that time was a black man. And then his woman is a black woman. I said, we got to personify our image. Your culture is your medicine. All right, the next 10 or 15 minutes, I want to open up to some questions. So you can unmute your mic, and one by one, you can ask me a question, and I'll do my best to try to address it. Make it relevant to our lecture tonight. Don't ask me where aliens come from. Don't ask me a question, do I believe in spaceships? Or make it relevant to today's lecture. I'm open. Come on, I wasn't that good. There got to be some gaps. You got to have some questions.
Hotep. Question about traveling to Ghana. What do you think the fate of us Africans here, or African Americans here, in terms of traveling to Ghana regarding this pandemic that's going on right now, the vaccine itself?
Yes, I think in Ghana, well, first of all, remember those things I talk about, going back to your own foods, being in control. In Ghana, if you are halfway well-to-do in America, you can go to Ghana and live and live wealthy. Here's an example. If you pay $2,000 plus rent or a mortgage each month, that means in 1 year you didn't spend 24 over $25,000 you pay to a landlord that you have no recipient. In 2 years, you spent over 50,000. And $50,000 in Ghana, you can build from scratch a 5-bedroom mansion on your acre of land. You can't even get, for $1 million here in Harlem, you can't even get a brownstone. If you ain't got 3 million and up, you can't even get a brownstone on a 60 by 90. Okay, the living here, what you spend on food in 1 month, I can live off for the whole year in Ghana and have fresh produce every single day. For $5, I used to have enough fruit and vegetables for the week. Brother, did I kind of answer your question here? You have the ability to be the captain of your ship. And let me say this, any business you do in America, you can do in Ghana to an all-Black clientele.
To you. So in terms of establishing ourselves there, I definitely agree and see that. But in terms of actually being able to travel there, though, with this, what do you think about the vaccine?
No, you just have to, before you get on the plane, you just have to show, you have to taken the test. You don't have to take the shot. You have to have taken the test saying you don't have corona. And then when they get there, they'll test your temperature and then that's it. And once you're there, you're good.
Do you think this is a temporary situation, or they might try to move into a situation where you have to take the shot?
Well, they're trying to make it so that you have to take the shot. Remember, I opened up by saying this pandemic is about taking control of the world, not just in America. This 1% is trying to take a grip on the world. Let me say this. Before the pandemic, 8 of the top 10 fastest growing nations in the world were all in Africa, and Ghana being one of those. The other 2 were still people of color. So the top 10 fastest growing nations in the world are all people of color. The people who are in control got to put a stop to this. So this is about taking control of this, cutting the population in half so that they don't have to share the resources. There's enough resources for the world, but they don't want to share the resources. That's the problem. It's not that the world is overpopulated. Come on, I live in New York State. If I leave the city 20 miles and start going north, I can ride 10, 15, 30 miles without seeing no houses, no people. And I can do that all the way to Canada. So overpopulated is not the problem. And there's plenty of farmland. So you've been programmed, even if you got a nice little plot of land, you want grass so you could be like the Joneses. No, you should be planting some tomatoes and some cabbages out there. You don't need no grass. You don't need a lawnmower on the grass. You need a hoe and a rake and some seeds. You need to be planting your food. You need to be growing your herbs. See, you got to change the way we think, even here. No matter where you are on the planet right now, African people have to change the way we think. We got to start thinking symptomatically. But yes, brother, they're going to try to make it so that you have to take the shot. So that's why I said our herbalists have to try to come up with formulas. How do we detox? How do we get nanoparticles out of our body? The reason why they're going to give you booster shots is because the body naturally will try to make an adjustment. So we got to keep boosting you to make sure that the computer cloud can read your mind. They can still tap into you. Hopefully I answered that.
Last question, if you don't mind. Is it possible to have our own independent, sovereign commercial plane, as far as like, for Black folks, and not have?
If it was on the agenda, but it's not on the agenda. Remember, I said our rich Black people, we got all these billionaires and millionaires, but that's not on their agenda. Their agenda is to maintain the status quo. So they don't want to do something independent. They just want to buy a new jet by Europeans. They want to land at the European airport. They don't want to build their own.
So if that's something we try to accomplish, they would definitely fight against it.
Well, they could fight against it, but you have the ability in your country. You have the ability to do anything you want. If Ghana has an independent wait a minute, let me say this here. Even right now, brother, in America and all around the world, there's independent airports. People got little private airports that you can land in. I know in New Jersey, I used to fly out of this independent airport near Princeton. It's not part of the public domain. They got a whole different thing. They have a different pricing. I remember I used to fly to DC for like $50. You just go here. So there's more commercial planes, just like you have. Watch this here, brother. Here's a perfect example. You see the way the gypsy taxis are in New York?
Right.
You have the established yellow cabs and black checkered cabs, and you get in and they got a meter and they charge you X amount of dollars, right? But then you got what? You got these little independent cab dealers, right? It's like, hey man, give me $5. I take you all the way across town. $7 any place in Harlem. Okay? So the airplane is the same thing. There's independent private airports that you can land in and do all around the world. And rich Europeans and rich people, period, do that.
Okay.
Sometimes if you're super famous, you don't want to land in the public airport.
Right.
And be bombarded by a million people. So you have your private jet, you land in a private airport, you have your private limo come pick you up, boom, and nobody even know how you got there.
Okay.
So yes, brother, it's feasible, but you got to change the way you think in order for that to happen.
All right. See you. Do well.
I appreciate that question too. Anybody else?
Indio and Mfundishi, when you were talking about the Medu Netra classes, for those who might be interested, is it still in time to apply for the Medu Netra classes that are going on now, or would they need to wait for the
all the
next-
Medu Netra classes are just starting right now. So if you sign up like now, this week, next week, you're still like in tune to all the Medu Netra classes. So Medu Netra beginners is starting like right now. You have an opportunity to do that. Next week, we'll be starting opening the door to Ancient Kemet. I just finished up the curriculum now. And so those are the advanced people. But you can take beginner, intermediate, and advanced classes right now on my website, mfundishichahutimas.net. And the beginner people start with Ma'at, because now I'm trying to get you into harmonious balance. That's why the beginner classes is Ma'at. I didn't just pick a name out of the hat. Okay, Ma'at sound good. Okay, no. The intermediate people is Haru, because now you've raised into higher consciousness. The advanced people is Jehuti, because he's articulate thought, speech, writing. He is the mind of the creator. I need you to be innovative now. So that's the way the 3 levels are set up. Ma'at, Haru, Jehuti. Don't try to come in on Jehuti. You come in on Ma'at. And then you advance to Haru and then Jehuti. Okay? This is like a Chinese movie I saw. We had the 36 chambers of Shaolin. And the guy wanted to come in and go to the 36th chamber without going through chamber 1. It doesn't work like that. So you start, even if you think you're pretty sharp, all that means is you're just going to go faster. That's all. So people, this is the time. Yes, go ahead.
I don't know if I missed this information, but there is one specific person that made that statement about a people who lost the culture, the language, and they died.
Yes.
You know their story. There's one person that say that.
No, it's an African proverb, and I just created a story to present what happened.
Yeah, that's a good way to learn. Yeah, I just want to make sure. Yeah.
Right. And I try to use that scenario. So every place you look in Asia where there were great African cultures that's no longer there, that's what happened.
Right.
You can find that in Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. It's like in the forward before the chapters begin. He has the story of a traveler who is traveling through the so-called Middle East, and he comes upon an old man, and the traveler asks the old man, what happened to the Black people of Sumer? I heard, or what happened to the people of Sumer? I heard they were Black. And the old man said, they lost their history and they died. So you can find that in Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams.
Thank you, Brother Majid, for
Okay,
that specific.
And another question is not, maybe it's not too related to the issue of tonight, but there, besides the image of some meditation practices and fighting sciences and arts, there is some pictures of those so-called Asian sciences, medical science of like acupuncture in Kemet, like the using of some pressures in the body. There is some pictures of that in Kemet.
Yes, that a lot of what you see of Ayurvedic medicine from India comes out of ancient Kush, brought in by the Dravidians and people of that nature. All those ancient architecture that you see in ancient India all come out of the ancient Kush Valley. That's why that's even called the Indus Kush Valley, you know, because they came out of Kush, okay, came out of Africa. But so all those, the foundation of the meridians that you see, the Chinese, you know, all of that was developed by us. I think the actual puncture, I don't know if we had that. I know we had African, what we call acupressure, the pressure points. And so I don't want to necessarily take claim for the acupuncture, but I know the acupressure, understanding the meridians and pressure points is all in African science that was shown, that was already old in the first golden age.
Okay.
That's why I said your culture is your medicine. If you go back and you understand, we understood the human brain during the so-called third dynasty, during Imhotep's time. They understood the circulation of blood in the body. They understood the human brain. They understood the different functions of the brain. All of that before Europeans even had an educational system. So we got to go back to the root. Remember, I said the new educated people will be the ones who is how much they unlearn and then relearn from an African center. So it's not how many degrees you get, it's how much stuff that you get rid of will determine the real educated people in the 21st century Africa, 63rd century African time. Because don't throw out everything they taught you. You got to relearn it. That's what I'm trying to say. Just relearn it. It's got to be from your center. Instead of being a war with nature, you got to be an ally with nature. How do I create something that's going to be nature friendly, but at the same time, help people? So that's how your inventions have to work. Come on, they created nuclear weapons, nuclear energy, and they don't know what to do with the waste. So you put it in a barrel and drop it at the bottom of the ocean, and then eventually you're going to contaminate everything in the ocean and the sea. You don't create something and you don't know what to do with the waste. But if you're anti-nature, it don't even matter. You have the oil spill. You kill all the fish in the water there, but you got oil. See, so, you know, whatever your inventions is, especially in terms of science, is it helpful to humans and is it environmentally friendly? Am I raping nature? No, that's not environmentally friendly. Am I just living a hole, a sore thumb, a sore in the earth? That's not environmentally friendly. So we want you to still be innovative, still be dynamic, but we want you to be an ally with nature. We want you to be in harmony with nature. Even how can I make in ancient Kemet, if you cut down one tree, you had to plant 10. Because maybe half of them weren't going to survive. So you got to be thinking innovative. I got to be thinking, how can I be creative? How can I even make it better? If I'm cutting down the rainforest, I got to have another program to building rainforests. I have to give it one way. There's some places in Asia where they have oil and oil is the foundation of their wealth. But what they do is everybody in that nation receives a check and they benefit from the wealth that they've gotten out of the earth. And then at the same time, they've taken desert land and turned it into fertile land. So you're reclaiming the desert. In Somalia, the desert is taking over half the country, and they got people with shovels trying to shovel the sand back. That's silly. You see, it's so silly, it's funny. So needless to say, more desert is taken over each year. And you're not, how are you going to help the people and yet not be an enemy of nature? Our scientists need to be trying to come up with solutions. How do we get clean water? How do we take ocean water and turn it into drinkable water? Then you never have a famine of water. You never have a drought, rather, where water is a problem. Look how much ocean there is. It's what, 70% of the Earth's planet of surface. So if 70% of the Earth's surface is water, you should never have a shortage of water. So your science says, oh, well, we can take salt water and drink and make it into drinkable water again. And then the waste we can use for A, B, C, E, maybe to preserve things or something of that nature. So that everything is being used. When a Native American killed the buffalo, he used every single part of them. He used his skin, his hide for his teepees and his clothes. He used his bones for construction. He used his meat, he ate. He used every part of the buffalo, and he only killed what he needed to survive. Other than that, he nurtured. He didn't kill pregnant buffalo. He didn't kill female buffalo during breeding time. He had a rule to it. The Europeans came in and just killed all of them. You got to be in harmony with nature so that everything that you need to survive cannot survive and still be in harmony with nature. Young people got to be thinking like that. I talked about this. Lady is with her daughter at the zoo, and there's a rooster there. And the lady says, what's that, baby? She's talking to her 5-year-old. And the 5-year-old says, oh, that's chicken McNuggets. So she didn't see a living creature that deserved to die. She saw the bird as chicken McNuggets. That's the mentality we got here. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's some bacon running across there. That's some bacon. That's a Big Mac. We got to change the way we think.
Mfundishi, I had a question about one of the slides that you're showing.
Mm-hmm.
The one on the lower right-hand side that has the spine, and then there's like a green diagram next to it.
The jet column. Yes, okay. Let me enlarge that for you. Remember, I said we understood anatomy. So that the jet column of Asar shows his backbone, and it shows how the jet column is set up just like the human backbone. So we understood nature. Now that the jet column was a symbol of power even before the first so-called dynasty, which means that our people understood the human anatomy and understood how we can make art, how we can make instruments, how we can make tools that imitate. Like our temples was designed in the design of the human body. So the Holy of Holies is where the brain would be, where things are. The entrance is be where your feet is. The columns is be where your ribs are. You see, so we had this science. So your architecture was in alignment with nature and even the human body. And so here you have tools, we have instruments, we have things of value that was part of the human persona to help us understand ourselves and nature better. So thank you for that question, But yes, they were in alignment. They understood it, and that's an alignment. The back keeps alignment. It's a structure, and that's the pillar construction. Without the backbone, you can't do nothing. I remember when I was a teenager, if you were a coward, they would say, oh, you ain't got no backbone.
Yep.
Because that was the symbol of strength and stability. You had to have some backbone. You need some backbone, son.
To veggie back off of that, I had noticed on your website that you had something about doing like a virtual tour to the museum.
Yes.
Okay, which museum and what type, what?
Okay, each it's going to be 4 different virtual tours. So the first one's going to take you to the Metropolitan, the things that are there. Then I'm going to take you to the British Museum. And then I'm going to take you to the Louvre Museum in Paris. And then I'm going to take you to the Egyptian Museum. And so without going there, you're going to see all the artifacts that they have. And I'm going to be explaining it and taking you through it.
Are they 4 separate tours or is it like a package? How is that working?
Yeah, they're 4 separate, once a month. Each one, like this month we go to the Metropolitan, next month we go to the British, the next month we go to the Louvre, and then the 4th month in January, we go to the Egyptian Museum. And those, by the way, are the 4 largest museums in the world. So the one in Egypt, the one in France, the Louvre, the British Museum, and the Metropolitan. Those are the 4 largest museums in the world. So I'm taking you on a tour of each one of those, showing the African artifacts, specifically ancient Kemet. And how everybody's biting off of our stuff except for us. And when we do bite off of our stuff, we imitating them, not us.
So, wow.
Just on this same picture, if we look here, right next to this is a blow up of showing that we understood the pineal gland and how the body works. So we knew that all going back by the first so-called dynasty, first golden age. We understood all of this.
Hello, Mfundishi.
Say that again.
Yes, hello. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
All of the different museums, like you said, there are also so many different artifacts that aren't seen. What do you think about those different artifacts and why they're not shown? And is it ever a possibility to retrieve those artifacts and at least have them presented so that it can generate money for the cause, like you're saying, and we'll be able to learn more about our history that is obviously hidden.
Yes. So let me answer your question in a couple of phases. Number one, there are some pressure from certain African countries to return some of the artifacts, and that's happening now. I saw just last week where they returned a structure to Benin that was stolen in the 1800s during the European occupation. And now they're returning it back to Benin. And it was a magnificent brass sculpture of the Oba, the king. And so they've returned. So slowly but surely, I know some of the Nigerian art is being returned back. That was stolen also during the European occupation in the 1800s. So slowly but surely, but you have to have outside pressure. They're not just doing this off the kindness of their heart. So we as Africans throughout the diaspora have to put pressure on them to do that. Dr. Van Sertima, I happen to be with a team with Dr. Van Sertima, where he petitioned to the British Museum, who housed the beard of Haru M. Aketi in Egypt, where the British, they had shot it, off, and they had it in the basement. And so part of the nose and the beard and stuff was in the basement. So Dr. Ivan Van Sertima petitioned to the British government and to the museum and all of them, and through pressure, it was returned back to Egypt. But then the Arabs didn't put it on because they said it wasn't good for tourism because it looked too African. See, so you got all types of obstacles like that. If you got a bunch of Negroes in charge, even if you put the stuff back, it's not going to do you any good. So you need to change the way we think in order to do that, my brother. Yes, pressure can be placed, but they're not just, they're making too much money off of it. They got it for free and they're making money off of it. So without some tremendous pressure, no, they're not giving our stuff back. With pressure, yes, some of them are beginning to give some of the stuff back. And at least they're willing to share half the stuff they stole. And I know what you're saying. How about the basement? That ain't even being shown. But let me say this here. They recycle this. It's like a club. And so The British Museum will loan stuff to the Metropolitan Museum, will loan stuff to the Louvre Museum, will loan stuff to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, and they have special exhibits, and then they all share the profit. So even stuff in the basement, doing these special exhibits, they bring that out for a special exhibit.
Right.
Like even at the Metropolitan, I remember maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, they had a special show of the second golden age, the so-called Middle Kingdom. And it was a beautiful exhibit. Stuff from the basement, stuff from other places, all came together, and they housed it upstairs on the second floor in the Metropolitan Museum. It was fantastic. I don't know if anybody on this was there, Midget. I don't know if y'all were there, because we had over about 60 people from our organization was there. We had Mama Jeffries. We had a whole group of people. So even the stuff that's in the basement, they use it for special exhibits. So, brother, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? We still got a minute or two. It's 10 o'clock. That's our time. I'll address one or two questions. That's it.
The slide to the right of the pineal gland with the bottom part of the face, what is that one?
Where it says how to decalcify your pineal gland.
Okay.
That's part of my class for opening the door to ancient Kemet, but I'll open it up since you asked the question. These are your calcified. All right. First of all, Western technology, Western medicine is going to calcify your pineal gland, even if you're African. So these are ways to decalcify your pineal gland. Drink more distilled water. You can't have all these chemicals that they have in the water. You got to have distilled water. Take MSM daily. Eat raw chocolate, apple cider vinegar. Eat an alkaline diet. Zophyllite clay will also help. You can lay it on your body, and it helps detoxify the body and help the pineal gland move back to its natural state. Take minerals and eat sea salt. What is it? Niacin, iodine, chaga mushroom tea. Drink fresh carrot juice. Sun gaze daily. Sun gaze early in the morning, and try to do that daily if you can. That's why I'm outside almost every day. And open your heart to Ma'at. Live with love. If you live in fear, then that damages your pineal gland. If you're totally stressed all the time, that damages your pineal gland. So you got to try to live, you got to try to get away from Wazungu as much as you can. and this ain't hating on them now. I'm just saying, if for your health, you need to stay away from them. You need not eat their food. Don't wear their clothes. Don't listen to their music. Don't go to their places of gathering, because they're they're energy vampires too. They want to rub up against you. They want to touch you. They want to touch your hair. They want to do, things like that. They want to sap your energy. So these are all ways to decalcify your pineal gland. Culture is your medicine. Take control of your life. Prepare yourself. You're in the mood of check. You got to get out of check or the game is over. And then you got to make an offensive move to put yourself towards freedom. You got to align yourself with other Africans. You got to be thinking about going home at some point. And you got to be thinking about making Africa great for Africans home and abroad.
And as you said, we need to think more African-minded in terms of our clothing, our hair, the company that we keep, our awareness in terms of being more in sync with our African connections.
And so if you're thinking of a new business, think of how you can enhance Africanity and then create a niche for that.
Right. And then when it comes to some of the different materials we need around it, when you're vending out and Harlem. Some of these resources people can get from you there as well, correct?
Right. Y'all have to look at the African market. See, you're not looking at the African market right. The African market in the future is going to be the largest ethnic group on the planet. If they don't kill us all off by you running down taking the shots and stuff, if they don't kill us all off, we're going to be the largest ethnic group on the planet. That's what they're trying to stop. And so if you're thinking about a business, you're thinking about a business going to cater to the largest ethnic group on the planet. You can't go wrong with that. And just keep it in Ma'at so that you help sustain it, not destroy it. I want to say, Amin Ra Nasut Netra, Atin Ra Nebnank, Jehuti Haru Nepu, De Inu Ank Uja Seneb Neb. If I have said anything of value, use it in your life right away. May Amin and all the great forces, Jehuti, surround you, be a part of you. May all those ancestors and Netraru that came to aid us on this lecture, may you return so that you can continue to inspire us. We are one. We understand that we are all part of this one dynamic creation. We are here to make better versions of ourselves. Amin Ma'at. Dua Netcha. Aha tu. Thank you very much, y'all.
Dua, thank you for all this knowledge you've imparted.
Great lecture. So what's up?